Sometimes the past refuses to stay buried beneath the cold marble of a gravestone. We build enormous walls of wealth and power to protect ourselves from old pain. But fate has a strange way of knocking on our doors when we least expect it. This is a story about a man who lost everything that mattered, only to find it again in the eyes of a desperate stranger. Prepare for a tale where dark secrets are finally dragged into the light. 20 years ago, Lily was just a naive girl from a small town in West Virginia who moved to New York City looking for a brighter future. Instead, she became a beautiful bird trapped in a golden cage. She married Richard Sterling, a ruthless Wall Street tycoon 30 years her senior. Richard gave her diamonds and luxury, but he controlled her every breath. Her only escape was a brief, passionate reunion with Marcus. Marcus was the older brother of her wild friend Chloe. He was her childhood crush. Their secret romance blossomed into deep love, prompting Lily to run away from her abusive husband. But their happiness was violently cut short. Lily vanished, leaving a cold message that she was going back to Richard. A year later, she died in a suspicious car crash. Now Marcus is a powerful venture capitalist in Manhattan. He is wealthy, respected, but completely hollow inside. He spends his days managing corporate empires and his nights haunted by a ghost. Rain lashed against the cold marble of the cemetery. Marcus stood completely still. The dark umbrella shielded him from the storm, but nothing could shield him from the crushing weight of the past. It had been exactly 20 years since Lily passed away. 20 years of empty penthouses and meaningless boardroom victories. He stared at her beautifully engraved name. The grey New York sky felt much heavier than usual today. The scent of wet earth and decaying autumn leaves filled his lungs. He was a billionaire now. He was a man who could buy entire city blocks, but he could not buy a single second of time to bring her back. Suddenly, a sound broke through the drumming rain. It was a soft, ragged cough. Marcus turned his head slowly. Standing a few yards away near a crumbling stone angel was a young girl. She was shivering violently in the biting wind. Her clothes were nothing but oversized rags clinging to her fragile frame. And she was heavily pregnant. The freezing rain plastered her dark hair to her pale face. She looked utterly terrified. She was like a trapped animal surrounded by predators. Marcus felt a strange, sharp ache deep inside his chest. He took a slow step toward her. The girl stumbled backward immediately. Her eyes grew wide with pure panic. She raised a trembling hand, as if to defend herself against the cold world. Marcus stopped in his tracks. He did not want to scare her away. He slowly reached into the inner pocket of his tailored Italian suit. He pulled out a thick clip of $100 bills. He extended his hand gently toward the shivering girl. "Please take this. Buy yourself something warm to eat. You should not be out here in this storm." The girl stared at the money with hungry, desperate eyes. She hesitated for a long moment. Then she darted forward and snatched the bills from his hand. "Thank you." Her voice was barely a whisper. Before Marcus could ask her name, his cell phone began to vibrate violently. Marcus glanced down at the glowing screen. It was an urgent call from his chief operations officer. He turned his back for just a few seconds to answer. When he ended the call and turned around, the girl was completely gone. The cemetery was empty again. Only the sound of the relentless rain remained. Marcus sighed heavily. He placed a bouquet of white lilies on the wet marble grave. "I will be back soon, my love." He whispered the words into the wind. As he walked back to his sleek black town car, his mind drifted back to the past. The memory of Lily always hit him like a physical blow. He remembered the day she finally broke down. She had been living in Richard Sterling's magnificent Upper East Side penthouse. It was a place dripping with priceless art and silent misery. Richard had treated her like a beautiful, silent trophy. She was not allowed to have friends. She was not allowed to laugh too loud. She was slowly suffocating in a prison made of solid gold. The only person who brought a spark of life to Lily was Chloe. Chloe was a chaotic whirlwind of energy. She was loud, fearless, and constantly breaking the rules. One fateful evening, Chloe dragged Lily out of the suffocating penthouse. She brought her to a loud, dimly lit bar in the East Village. Lily felt nervous the entire ride there. She nervously applied concealer over a faint, yellowish bruise on her cheekbone. It was a gift from Richard. He had grabbed her face too hard the night before. Chloe ordered a round of strong drinks. She leaned across the sticky wooden table. Guess who just flew into New York? My brother Marcus. Lily felt her heart skip a sudden beat. Marcus. She had not seen him since she was a skinny teenager in West Virginia. He had been her first secret crush. He was the kind, handsome, older boy who never noticed her. But things were very different now. She was a grown woman, and she was trapped in a nightmare. An hour later, Marcus walked into the crowded bar. Lily felt the air leave her lungs. He had grown into a broad, confident man. His blue eyes scanned the room and locked onto her. He stopped walking. The noisy background music seemed to fade away. Lily could hear the rapid beating of her own heart. Marcus approached the table with a warm, genuine smile. Lily, you look absolutely stunning. His deep voice sent a shiver down her spine. They spent the entire night talking. Chloe eventually got too drunk and fell asleep in a corner booth. Marcus and Lily were left completely alone. They talked about art, dreams, and the crushing weight of loneliness. Marcus listened to her with real, undivided attention. He did not look at her like a possession. He looked at her like a human being. For the first time in years, Lily felt truly visible. She felt safe. When their hands accidentally touched over the table, a sudden spark ignited between them. That night changed everything. Lily knew she was playing a dangerous game. Richard was a powerful man with dangerous connections. He owned judges. He owned police chiefs. But the warmth in Marcus's eyes gave her a foolish, beautiful courage. A few days later, they met in a quiet park in Brooklyn. The autumn leaves were turning gold and crimson. Marcus pulled her gently into his arms. Leave him, Lily. Come with me to Boston. We can start a new life. Nobody will find us there. Lily buried her face in his warm chest. She wanted to believe him. She wanted to believe in a happy ending. But fear tasted like ash in her mouth. Richard will kill us both. You do not know what he is capable of. He will hunt us down. Marcus held her tighter. Let him try. I am not afraid of him. I cannot live in a world where you are suffering. His words broke the last of her defences. She agreed to run away. She packed a single bag and left her diamond ring on the cold kitchen counter. The first few months in Boston felt like a dream. They rented a tiny, sunlit apartment near the river. It was a fraction of the size of Richard's massive penthouse. But to Lily, it was a palace. She cooked simple meals. They watched cheap movies on a small television. They laughed until their stomachs hurt. Marcus worked long hours at a tech startup. But he always rushed home to her. They filed the divorce papers secretly. Miraculously, Richard did not fight the divorce. He signed the papers quietly from afar. It felt too easy. It felt like the calm before a devastating hurricane. But Lily pushed her fears away. She allowed herself to be happy. She felt a deep, profound peace. But shadows always find a way to creep back in. One evening, Marcus came home early to surprise her with flowers. He found the apartment completely empty. The closet was cleared out. The air felt cold. The silence in the small rooms was totally deafening. Marcus frantically called her phone. It rang endlessly. Finally, someone picked up. It was Lily. Her voice sounded strange. It was flat, cold, and entirely devoid of emotion. Marcus, please stop calling me. I made a huge mistake. I realized I cannot live like this. I cannot be poor. I miss my clothes. I miss the money. I am going back to Richard. Marcus felt the floor drop out from under his feet. Lily, what are you saying? This is crazy. You love me. You told me you love me. Her laugh echoed coldly through the speaker. Love does not pay the bills, Marcus. Goodbye. Do not look for me. The line went completely dead. Marcus stood frozen in the middle of the empty apartment. The beautiful bouquet of flowers slipped from his hands. The glass vase shattered loudly against the hardwood floor. He felt a pain so deep he could barely breathe. He tried to find her. He drove to New York. He stood outside Richard's heavily guarded building. but security threw him out onto the street. A year passed in an alcoholic haze. Marcus threw himself entirely into his business. He built his wealth with aggressive, ruthless determination. Then the phone call came. It was a cold Tuesday morning. The voice on the other end was a state trooper. They asked him to come to a local morgue. Lily had been killed in a horrific car crash on a wet highway. The official report said an unidentified truck had run her off the road. The truck was never found. Marcus tried to hire private investigators. He wanted to prove Richard was behind it, but every single investigator returned his money within a week. They refused to take the case. Richard was too powerful. He was untouchable. Marcus buried the love of his life on a rainy afternoon. Only Chloe stood beside him. After that day, Marcus locked his heart inside a steel vault. He became a machine. He moved to Manhattan. He built his empire. He never loved anyone else. The harsh buzzing of the intercom pulled Marcus back to the present day. He was sitting in his sleek glass-walled office overlooking the Manhattan skyline. His executive assistant, Sarah, walked in. She was a brilliant, sharp woman in her late 30s. She held a stack of important legal documents. "Mr. Sterling, the acquisition papers are ready for your signature." Marcus blinked heavily. He rubbed his tired eyes. "Thank you, Sarah. Just leave them on the desk." Sarah hesitated. She looked at him with gentle concern. "You look exhausted. Have you been sleeping?" Marcus offered a tight, fake smile. "I am fine. Just a long week." Sarah nodded slowly, but she did not look convinced. "By the way," the private clinic called again. "Chloe is refusing to eat. They need your authorization for a new treatment plan." Marcus felt a familiar wave of heavy guilt. Chloe, his poor sister. She had never recovered from Lily's death and her own wild mistakes. Marcus drove his car upstate later that afternoon. The psychiatric facility was hidden behind high stone walls and tall pine trees. It cost a fortune every month, but money could not buy sanity. He walked down the sterile white corridors. The smell of strong disinfectants made him feel sick. He found Chloe sitting by a heavily barred window. She was staring blankly at the falling rain. "Chloe." He said her name softly. She turned her head. Her face was hollow and deeply lined. The bright, fearless girl from his youth was completely gone. "Why do you keep coming here, Marcus?" she asked in a raspy voice. "Because you are my sister, and I love you." Chloe let out a dry, humorless laugh. "Love? Look where love got Lily. Look where it got me. You are just wasting your money. Let me rot in peace." Marcus sat beside her. He took her frail hand. "I will never give up on you. Do you hear me? I will get you out of this dark place." The visit left Marcus feeling utterly drained. He drove back to the city in complete silence. The rain continued to fall, matching his dark mood. He needed quiet. He needed peace. A few days later, he found himself driving back to the cemetery. It was a strange compulsion. He parked outside the wrought iron gates. The usual group of homeless people was huddled near the entrance. He ignored them and walked down the familiar gravel path. As he approached Lily's grave, he suddenly stopped. His heart slammed violently against his ribs. Someone was there. The pregnant girl from the other day was kneeling right in front of the marble headstone. She was tracing the carved letters of Lily's name with her dirty fingers. Marcus stepped closer, his shoes crunching loudly on the gravel. The girl jumped up. She spun around looking completely terrified. "Please do not hurt me." She backed away slowly. Marcus raised his hands to show he meant no harm. "I am not going to hurt you." Marcus spoke in a very calm, low voice. "I just want to know why you are looking at this grave. Did you know her?" The girl looked at him with large, frightened eyes. She wiped a streak of mud from her cheek. "I think she is my mother." The words hung in the cold air. Marcus felt as if the ground had suddenly vanished beneath his feet. He could not breathe. He stared at the girl's face. Now that he looked closely, he saw it. The shape of her jaw, the deep green colour of her eyes, the slight curve of her nose. It was impossible. It was absolute madness. Before Marcus could ask another question, the girl let out a sharp cry of severe pain. She grabbed her swollen stomach. Her knees buckled beneath her. Marcus lunged forward just in time to catch her before she hit the wet ground. "Hold on! I have got you!" he yelled. The girl's eyes rolled back in her head. She went completely limp in his arms. Marcos carried her effortlessly. Adrenaline flooded his veins. He ran past the shocked homeless people at the gates. He laid her gently across the back seat of his luxury sedan. He slammed the door and jumped into the driver's seat. The powerful engine roared to life. He drove like a madman through the crowded city streets. He dialed his phone and connected the call to the Bluetooth speaker. "Sarah," he shouted over the engine noise, "find the best private maternity hospital in the city. Tell them I am bringing in a critical patient. I want their top doctors waiting at the emergency entrance. Now." Sarah did not ask any questions. "Understood. I will handle it." Marcus swerved through heavy traffic. He kept glancing in the rearview mirror. The girl was pale and completely unresponsive. "Hang on, kid. Just hang on," he whispered to himself. The tires squealed as he pulled into the brightly lit ambulance bay of the elite hospital. A team of doctors and nurses rushed out with a rolling stretcher. They lifted the girl carefully and pushed her through the swinging double doors. Marcus tried to follow them, but a stern nurse held up her hand. "Sir, you need to stay here. We have to stabilize her." Marcus paced the waiting room floor like a caged tiger. The expensive leather couches and soft piano music did nothing to calm his racing heart. An hour passed. It felt like a lifetime. Finally, an older doctor in green scrubs walked through the doors. He looked exhausted. "Mr. Sterling, the girl is stable. She is severely malnourished, but the baby is okay for now. We had to sedate her. You can see her later. By the way, the nurses found this in her coat pocket." The doctor handed Marcus a worn, dirty leather wallet. It looked like it had been salvaged from a garbage bin. Marcus took the wallet with shaking hands. He slowly unzipped the main compartment. Inside the wallet, Marcus found a crumpled piece of heavy paper. It was an official state birth certificate. He unfolded it carefully. The edges were torn and stained with coffee. The name on the document read, Mia Sterling. The mother's name was printed clearly, Lily Sterling. Marcus stopped breathing. He looked down at the father's name. It was his own name, Marcus Sterling. He stared at the date of birth. He did the math quickly in his head. Mia was born exactly 6 months after Lily had run away from Boston. He felt a sudden, massive shockwave hit his brain. Lily had been pregnant. She had been carrying his child when she made that terrible cold phone call. Why did she leave him? Why did she lie about the baby? The realization hit him like a freight train. Richard had found out. He must have threatened to hurt the baby. Lily had sacrificed her own freedom and happiness to save their child. She had gone back to hell for him. Marcus pulled out his phone. His hands were trembling with a mix of profound grief and boiling rage. He dialed a private number. "Gabe, I need you at the hospital right now." Gabe was his head of corporate security. He was a tough, quiet man. He was a former NYPD homicide detective whose career ended when a gang targeted his family. Gabe understood pain better than anyone. 10 minutes later, Gabe walked into the waiting room. He wore a dark suit and a grim expression. "What is the situation, boss?" Marcus handed him the birth certificate. "I have a daughter, Gabe. She has been living on the streets, and Richard Sterling is the reason her mother is dead. I want you to dig up everything. I want to know exactly what happened 20 years ago. I want the name of the truck driver who ran Lily off the road. I want to know who put my daughter in the foster system. Leave no stone unturned. Use unlimited funds." Gabe nodded slowly. "Consider it done." Gabe disappeared to do his grim work. Marcus sat down heavily on a leather couch. Sarah arrived a few minutes later. She carried a large overnight bag. "I brought clothes and hygiene supplies for the girl." "Just like you asked." Sarah looked at Marcus closely. She saw the tears shining in his eyes. "Marcus, what happened?" Marcus looked up at her. His voice broke. "She is my daughter, Sarah. Lily was pregnant when she left me. I never knew. I let my child grow up on the streets. Sarah sat next to him. She placed a gentle, comforting hand on his broad shoulder. You did not know. You cannot blame yourself for a secret you never knew existed. Now you have a chance to make things right. You have a chance to be a father. Her words brought a small sliver of comfort to his chaotic mind. The doctor appeared in the hallway. She is awake now, but please be gentle. She is very frightened and confused. Marcus took a deep breath. He walked toward the hospital room. The hospital room was bright and sterile. Mia was sitting up in the large mechanical bed. She was clutching a thick white blanket to her chest. She looked tiny and fragile. Sarah followed closely behind Marcus. Mia's eyes darted nervously between them. Where am I? Why am I in this fancy place? Let me go. Marcus held up his hands gently. You are safe here, Mia. Nobody is going to hurt you. My name is Marcus. I am the man who brought you here from the cemetery. Mia gripped the blanket tighter. Why are you helping me? People do not help people like me for nothing. What do you want? Marcus felt a massive lump form in his throat. He pulled a chair close to the bed and sat down. He looked directly into her green eyes. I am helping you because I knew your mother. I loved her very much. And according to your birth certificate, I am your father. Mia stopped breathing. The colour drained completely from her pale face. Mia stared at him for a long time. A tear slowly rolled down her cheek. I knew it. An old lady named Martha told me before she died. She said my mum hid me with her to keep me safe from a bad man, but Child Services took me away when I was 5. I grew up in foster homes. It was awful. Marcus reached out and gently held her small hand. I am so sorry, Mia. I swear to you, I did not know. If I knew, I would have burned the city down to find you. Mia wiped her eyes aggressively. I tried to find you last year, but I got scared. I thought you would think I was a liar looking for money, so I stayed away. Marcus shook his head firmly. You never have to stay away again. You are my daughter. You will have everything you ever need. But tell me, where is the father of your baby? Mia looked down at her lap. Her voice trembled. His name is Noah. He is in jail. He got into a fight defending an old woman from muggers. The judge gave him 2 years. Marcus felt a surge of protective anger. He turned to Sarah, who was silently taking notes by the door. Call the legal team. I want the best criminal defense lawyers in the state working on Noah's case immediately. Get him out of that jail. I do not care what it costs. Sarah nodded sharply and stepped out to make the calls. A few hours later, Gabe returned to the hospital. He pulled Marcus aside in the quiet hallway. Boss, I have the full report. Richard Sterling hired a private investigator to track Lily down in Boston. He blackmailed her. He threatened to have you killed and the baby taken away if she did not return. She gave the baby to the old gardener Martha to hide her. She was planning to run away again to find you. But Richard found out. He hired a hitman to drive that truck. The hitman is dead. He died of a drug overdose 10 years ago. And Richard, Gabe paused. Richard Sterling died of a massive heart attack 2 days ago. Marcus leaned heavily against the cool hospital wall. Richard was dead. The monster who had ruined his life, who had murdered the woman he loved, had died peacefully in his sleep. There would be no legal justice. There would be no grand confrontation. The universe had simply taken him away. Marcus closed his eyes. The pain of Lily's sacrifice washed over him. She had given up everything to protect him and their daughter. She had walked straight into the flames of hell so he could live. A single tear escaped his eye. Sarah walked over and handed him a hot cup of coffee. It is over, Marcus. The past is finally over. Now you have to build the future. You have a daughter. You have a grandchild on the way. Focus on the light. Marcus looked at his loyal assistant. He saw the genuine care in her eyes. For the first time in 20 years, the thick ice around his heart began to melt. He nodded slowly. You are right, Sarah. It is time to live. The next week was a whirlwind of frantic activity. Marcus's elite legal team descended upon the court system like a pack of starving wolves. They filed endless motions. They presented new evidence. They intimidated the aggressive prosecutors. Within 5 days, Noah's conviction was completely overturned. He was released from Rikers Island on a rainy Thursday morning. Marcus sent his personal driver to pick the boy up. When Noah walked into the private hospital room, Mia burst into joyful tears. Noah rushed to the bed and buried his face in her neck. He was a rough-looking kid with tattoos, but his tears were pure and genuine. He looked at Marcus with deep, overwhelming gratitude. "I do not know how to repay you, sir. I swear I will work every day of my life to take care of her." Marcus placed a firm hand on the boy's shoulder. "Just love my daughter. Be a good father to your child. That is the only payment I will ever accept from you." That evening, Marcus found himself alone with Sarah in his Manhattan penthouse. They were going through mountains of paperwork to establish a legal trust fund for Mia. They ordered terrible Chinese takeout and drank expensive red wine. The contrast made them both laugh. Marcus realized how much he enjoyed hearing Sarah laugh. She had been his shadow for 5 years. She knew his schedules, his moods, and his secrets. But he had never really looked at her as a woman. "You have been incredible through all of this madness. I could not have done it without you," Marcus said softly. Sarah blushed lightly. She looked down at her wine glass. "I care about you, Marcus. I always have. You just never noticed." The admission hung in the warm air between them. Marcus reached across the kitchen island and gently touched her hand. "I am noticing now." Sarah smiled. A new, tentative bond was forming, right in the middle of the beautiful chaos. There was one more piece of the broken puzzle left to fix. The next morning, Marcus drove back to the bleak psychiatric facility in upstate New York. He marched past the nurses and straight into Chloe's room. "Pack your bags. You are coming home." Chloe looked up in absolute shock. "What are you talking about?" "I cannot leave. I am broken, Marcus." Marcus grabbed her small suitcase and started throwing her clothes inside. "You are not broken. You have just been drowning in the past. But things have changed. Lily left us a miracle. I found her daughter." "My daughter?" Chloe stopped breathing. She stared at him as if he had grown a second head. "What?" "Lily had a baby." Marcus nodded firmly. "Yes, and she is about to give birth. You are going to be an aunt. I need you, Chloe. Mia needs you. We are building a real family." Chloe began to cry. Not tears of sorrow, but tears of profound, shocking hope. She grabbed her coat and followed him out the door. The introduction between Chloe and Mia was explosive. Marcus brought his sister to the hospital. When Chloe saw the young girl sitting in the bed, she collapsed onto her knees. "She looks exactly like her." Chloe sobbed loudly. "She looks just like my beautiful Lily." Mia was confused at first, but when Marcus explained who Chloe was, the girl opened her arms. Chloe hugged her as if she were holding on to a lifeline. The heavy darkness that had consumed Chloe for 2 decades seemed to evaporate in that single embrace. She had found a clear purpose. "I am going to spoil this baby rotten," Chloe declared, wiping her ruined makeup. "I am going to buy every pink dress in Manhattan." Marcus watched them from the doorway. He felt a deep, warm satisfaction. His sister was coming back to life. His daughter was safe. The terrible wounds of the past were finally beginning to close. Over the next week, Marcus's massive penthouse transformed completely. It no longer looked like a cold, silent museum of modern art. It looked like a real home. Sarah and Chloe spent hours shopping together. They bought a beautiful crib, piles of tiny clothes, and ridiculous stuffed animals. Gabe, the tough security chief, was caught smiling while assembling a pink baby swing in the living room. Noah was given a job in one of Marcus's tech companies. He was eager to learn and fiercely protective of his new family. Mia was discharged from the hospital and moved into the guest suite. Every night, they all sat around the massive dining table. They ate, they argued playfully, and they laughed. Marcus sat at the head of the table. He looked at Sarah, who was pouring juice for Mia. He looked at Chloe, who was teasing Noah. He had never felt so incredibly rich in his entire life. The peace was suddenly shattered at 2 o'clock in the morning. A loud scream echoed through the dark penthouse. Marcus jumped out of bed and sprinted down the hallway. He found Noah standing in the doorway of the guest suite in a panic. Her water broke. "The baby is coming!" Noah shouted. Marcus immediately shifted into executive mode. "Gabe, get the car running. Sarah, grab the hospital bag. Chloe, help her breathe." The luxury sedan flew down the empty streets of Manhattan like a low-flying jet. They arrived at the hospital in record time. The nurses rushed Mia into the delivery room. Noah stayed by her side, holding her hand tightly and whispering words of encouragement. Marcus, Sarah and Chloe were left in the waiting room. They paced the floor nervously. The minutes dragged by like heavy stones. Marcus felt completely helpless. All his money and power meant absolutely nothing in this crucial moment. 4 agonizing hours passed. The sun began to rise over the city, painting the sky in brilliant shades of pink and gold. Finally, the delivery room door swung open. A tired but smiling doctor stepped out. "Congratulations, Grandpa. It is a perfectly healthy baby girl." Chloe let out a loud squeal of joy and hugged Sarah. Marcus felt a massive weight lift off his chest. He took a deep, shuddering breath. "Can we see them?" he asked quietly. The doctor nodded and stepped aside. They walked into the quiet room. Mia looked exhausted but glowing. She was holding a tiny pink bundle in her arms. Noah was sitting next to her, tears streaming down his face. Marcus walked over to the bed. He looked down at the tiny, wrinkled face of his granddaughter. She had a full head of dark hair. She was breathing softly. "Would you like to hold her, Dad?" Mia asked with a tired smile. Marcus gently took the tiny baby into his large hands. She was so incredibly light. He looked at her beautiful little face, and all the pain of the last 20 years finally washed away completely. "You are perfect," he whispered softly. "We named her Lily," Mia said quietly. Marcus felt a hot tear drop onto his cheek. Lily. It was the perfect name. He looked up and saw Sarah smiling at him with deep affection. Chloe was crying happily onto Noah's shoulder. The ghost of the past had finally been laid to rest. Out of tragedy and darkness, life had found a way to bloom again. Marcus held baby Lily close to his chest. He knew he could not change the past, but he promised himself he would fiercely protect this beautiful future. He was no longer just a cold billionaire. He was a father, a grandfather, and a man who had finally found his way back home. The darkness of the past can never extinguish the light of a new beginning. Out of immense sorrow, Marcus found a family he never knew he had. Thank you for reading this emotional journey of redemption and love. If this story touched your heart, please hit that like button, subscribe to our channel, and leave a comment below. We would love to know. What would you do if you suddenly discovered a secret from your past that changed your entire life?